Well, wonderful to see all of you here tonight. Thanks so much for coming. So I am Jane Winchell. I'm the Sarah Fraser Robbins Director of the Dottie Brown Art and Nature Center here at the Peabody Essex Museum and Curator of Natural History. And then I also am Vice President for ECOC. So I have, that's Vice President for life. It's always a delight to be here when we brought in a speaker, and I'm so delighted to welcome Sean Carey back for a record-breaking 6th time to speak at PEM, one of our co-hosted PEM ECOC events. Sean has presented on a wide array of topics for us, ranging from the BP oil disaster to wildlife photography in Tanzania. He first spoke to us about birding in Iceland in 2015, and he has since been back there to do more exploring and bird photography, so we decided was time to get him back to do a follow-up about this remarkable destination. So Sean moved from his home in Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, to Massachusetts in 1986. And he started watching birds in 1988. His avid interest in photography merged with this newfound passion for birding, and he began to combine the two in 1991. By 1994, he and good friend Jim Grady started Migration Productions as a way to present their multi-image slide presentations to a live audience. Their goal? To bring enthusiasm and appreciation and respect for the natural world to audiences through their productions and workshops, which they have continued through to today. Sean presents bird and wildlife-related multimedia presentations and photo workshops across the U.S. These productions also feature interviews with many people involved with bird watching and natural history topics. Over the past 20 years, Sean's compelling photos have been published in the Boston Globe, the New York Times, and Science Magazine, among many others. In 1997, he started teaching bird photography workshops, Fundamentals of Bird Photography, for Mass Audubon, and he is now an instructor at Summerfield Schools on Cape Cod at Audubon's Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. Sean has also served as an advisor for several organizations, including Mass Audubon's Museum of American Bird Art and the prestigious Nuttall Ornithological Club. So he's involved in so many different ways, enriching birding and helping others to develop some of the skills that he has mastered. And we are so delighted to have you here. And I hope you'll all join me in giving Sean a warm welcome to PEM.
Wow, is she talking about me? I hardly recognize that person she was describing. All right, I think my man up in the booth here is going to get me up and running. I think. Hocus pocus. There we go. Yes, 1, 2. You have to do a song and dance. I guess, yeah. All right, so there we go. So thanks to Janie, thanks Jim, ECOC, for inviting me back. Janie said to me first thing when we met here this evening, you know, you've spoke here more than anybody else, and can you guess how many times? And I was like, I don't know, 4. She's like, nope, this will be the 6th. So, yeah, pretty cool. So for those that aren't familiar with me, just a couple of things just here on this title slide. So that's my production company. You can go to the website, lots of information there, Instagram, and I would encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, and we'll look at a little bit of that as well. So why is Spock on the screen? Can everyone please put their phasers on stun? If you could do that, that would be great. Thank you. So my YouTube channel, so tonight we're going to look at a couple islands in Iceland, specifically Grimsey Island is one of them, and so I've got a couple of videos on Grimsey Island, you can check out when you leave here, and I would encourage you to do so. I think you'll enjoy it. Also, I did several videos while I was there, including this video here that was a little more whimsical, a little more lighthearted, and that's my buddy Dr. Carl you see there, and you'll see him in the program I think a couple other times. And so as part of this video was the famous cod dog, which I'm holding there from Grimsey Island, and we'll talk more about that, but you should watch that video. I think you'll enjoy it. And then Flatey Island, which we're going to look at as well, and I did a video while I was there on Flatey Island, and again we'll look at more of that. And plus I've got videos if you're into bird, nature, and wildlife photography. I've got product reviews and other tips and tricks on photography and so forth. So lots of information on my YouTube channel, including I've got some blog posts as well. So for tonight, what we're going to do, what I'm going to do, what we're going to do collectively is we're going to travel to Iceland, and very specifically we're going to go again to the islands of Grimsey and Flatey. And before I begin, I'm curious, how many people here have traveled to Iceland? Yeah, not unsurprisingly, it's a real destination. And if you have not been to Iceland, I dare say you should put it on your list of places to visit. You will not be disappointed. Here's the next question. This is the audience participation portion of the program, by the way. So a lot of folks raised their hands and said they had been to Iceland. The next question is, how many people have been to Grimsey? Oh, Dave has, yes, with a mutual friend. How many folks have been to Flatey? Somebody in the back, your hands kind of go waving, what? Oh, the ferry, that's right, the ferry stops. Yes, you're on your way to Lachavar. Very well, yes, we'll talk about that. So anyway, so we're going to travel to Iceland. We're going to go to these two islands. This is the focus of tonight's program, is to look at these two really rather remarkable islands, one of which in many ways is even more remarkable than the other for reasons that you're going to see very shortly. And this is a photo from Grimsey Island. So just to orient everybody, so this is obviously Iceland that we're looking at here, and where we're going to go, let's see if my pointer thing works. Come on, there it is. We're going to go up to this island called Grimsey Island, which is the northernmost inhabited island off of Iceland. There's just over 100 people, I believe, that live on this island, although when I was there, I dare say I don't know that I saw more than 20 or 30 people total, but suffice to say, that's where we're going to go. And to get there, once you land in Iceland, you leave Boston. Thankfully, it's not a very long flight, 4.5 to 5 hours, which is nice. You fly into Keflavik, then you've got to drive north to get to the town of Dalvik. Come on, sorry, I got a new pointer here. You're going to leave out of Dalvik, and you're going to take a ferry to the island, which is about a 3-hour ferry ride. And there's a handful of people here in the audience that know me pretty well, and one thing that folks that know me well know that I do not do well on boats at all. And by not at all, I mean completely not at all. And a 3-hour ferry ride to me is, generally speaking, going to be a very unpleasant experience. But nonetheless, that's how you're going to get there. You can fly there, but we're taking the ferry. So the town of Dalvik, not much to it. If you're driving through or towards Dalvik, if you were to sneeze, you might miss the town. It'll go by rather quickly. And for those that are familiar with Iceland, you know the weather changes very quickly and can look as dreary and drab as this, but can also become quite nice very shortly. And you jump on the ferry. It's a very old ferry, which apparently they've been trying to replace for some years. And when I say a very old ferry, when you get on the ferry, you realize, yes, it's a very old ferry. So I've got 2 strikes already. Not only do I not do well in the open ocean, I've now got this old, rickety, somewhat rickety ferry that I've got to get on. But nonetheless, you suck it up, you do what you got to do, and you make your way out of the harbor, and off you go on your adventure, which is where we're going to go now. And you arrive at Grimsey Island, and they have this little harbor area here, and even within this harbor area and these rocks area along here, this part of the harbor, you've got guillemots that are nesting in there, fulmars around and so forth. But one of the more interesting things, and now I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see a little bit better, is we're going to take a look at that little hot dog shack right there, which is where you get your cod dog if it's open. And so anyway, we arrive, and it was, to say an unpleasant experience would be an understatement. And as I'm getting off the boat, one of the young men who worked on the ferry turned to us and said, "Wow, that was the worst ride over in the last 15 years. Yeah, lucky me. Thankfully, it was a much smoother experience going back, so yeah, got that going for me. So anyway, so we arrive on Grimsey. Here's the hot dog stand, the famous hot dog stand. We were there in the summer of 22. We're coming out of COVID, and we had several of our lunch experiences there. That is the famous cod dog, which is this fried fish fritter thing, something in this garlic sauce. Anyway, they are absolutely delicious. Most days when we went down, I had 2 of them, and you wash it down with the orange soda, which everyone talks about when you're in Iceland. And again, there's my buddy Dr. Carl and my friend Mike. And so I'm going to try to tell this story as quickly as possible. I told a little bit of this at dinner tonight. My buddy Mike, who you see on the left there, he's been leading tours in Iceland for many years now. And to a large degree, Mike is the person almost singularly responsible. Actually, Mike and his wife Ann, I should include Ann with him because the 2 of them travel together. They kind of discovered Grimsey. It's not that it needed discovered. Everybody knew it was there. There were people living there, so on and so forth. But birders, bird watchers, and bird photographers, more importantly, were really not going there. And on one of their trips many years ago, they saw an article, I believe, in the Iceland Air magazine about Grimsey. And so the next year they went over, and Mike could not believe the bird life there. So there's almost 2 million nesting seabirds on Grimsey Island. It is, to say it is phenomenal is an understatement, as you're about to see. So anyway, Mike then decides he's going to lead a tour there the following year, which he does, and he's been leading tours there ever since. And now most of the tour leaders that lead trips from other countries, including a lot from the US, that travel to Iceland specifically to photograph birds, and puffins being very high on that list, they're all now going to Grimsey. And that's in large part due to Mike. And he's have a relationship with a woman who owns the guest house, Hatla, who's a fantastic person, and we'll hear more about that. There's 1 restaurant on the island, so if you want your Viking food, you're in luck. You can get your Viking meal. We did eat there once while we were there. So when you enter, again, the island, you get to the harbor area. The coastline here, kind of this is the area kind of leading up to the guest house, all along this, I won't call it a cliff so much. The cliffs are really on the other side. It's kind of a slope down to what they call the beach. You'll see there's some puffins there, lots of puffins. And the one thing you figure out pretty quickly is there's lots of puffins. In fact, the first 20 minutes I was there, I saw more puffins in those 20 minutes than I'd ever seen in my life prior to that. And I had been to Iceland before and other places to see puffins. This is pretty typical of the houses that are there, very modest but very well kept. Again, not a lot of people that live there, but again, it's just kind of interesting. There is a small school that's there, and I noticed that there was a basketball hoop and a basketball, and I used to play basketball in high school, and I said to myself, this is an opportunity you cannot pass. You want to be able to say that you've played basketball in Iceland, so I decided I have to shoot a couple hoops, and I would put that on my bucket list that I had actually played basketball in Iceland, so I've got that going for me as well. This is the guest house that we stayed at, that you see here. It's a fantastic guest house. And from the guest house, literally across the street, right here, that's, again, coming up from where the harbor area is here, that's where this kind of cliff face or the slope is here that leads right off to the ocean. And it is just puffins, 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 puffins. More puffins, more puffins, more puffins. To the point where you can see it here, if you look. So these are all puffins along here. There's just, you can't even count the number of puffins out in the water here. It is just puffins galore. Although interestingly, there are some times when you can leave the guest house and you walk out and you might not see any puffins there because they all might be out at sea. But suffice to say, lots of puffins. And this is looking kind of in the other direction, and that's both of the coves kind of leading up to each other. And again, the guest house that you see back there. But you can see, again, right here, you just got, some puffins that are up in there. And that slope that leads down, well, they call these beaches. I wouldn't call it a beach, it's all rocks. You'll get some of the local shorebirds that are there, Eurasian oystercatcher being one. And a look at the guest house. And again, a very nice guest house, and Hotla runs fantastic experience when you're there. And then this leads me to the next part of the talk, which you're looking at now and you're wondering, why am I holding a glass of milk and a sandwich? It's not any sandwich, it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So now this is also the audience participation part of the program again. So how many people here keep any sort of a bird list? Raise your hand. I kind of figured that was going to happen. Okay. So people have their year list, their yard list, their ABA list, their, you name it. Everyone has all their lists. And for those that know Bob Stymus here in Massachusetts, he has a bird list of one species, Carolina wren, that he tries to see in every city and town in the state. So you can take this to whatever degree you want in terms of your list. That's a good question, Jim. I actually asked him that last time. I think he was down to like just a handful of cities and towns that needs it, but that was a few years ago. So anyway, so here is the list for which yours truly holds the world record, and that is the peanut butter and jelly list of birds. And the rules, because all lists have to have rules. We all know this. If you're a bird watcher, you have to have rules. So the rules for the peanut butter and jelly list is you can only count whatever species on your list while you're eating your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Once you finish the sandwich, they do not count. So I hold the world record. I'm just saying, I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I hold the world record. If you want to get it on the peanut butter and jelly list, I encourage you to do so. And next time we meet up, we can compare our list. The food at the guest house is fantastic. This is the group I was traveling with. Again, I can't say enough good things about Hotla and the whole experience staying here at the guest house. There are sheep that are on the island. There used to be Icelandic horses on the island that were roaming free, but by the time we had arrived, that had basically ceased and desist, as it were, because Icelandic horses, particularly the ones on the island, they can be a little nosy, shall we say, to the point where they were chewing on people's cars and houses and this sort of thing. So there were only a few left, and they were penned off. So you don't, if you're going to Grimsey and you hope to see Icelandic horses, that's really not going to happen. But the sheep are just roaming free. But we're there to see and photograph birds. My buddy Mike, again, who you see standing here, on the first afternoon we arrive, knows exactly where we need to go. It's not a particularly big island. Mike's wife, Ann, routinely when we were there would kind of walk the whole island or most of it. You could probably do it in a little over, I think, an hour, maybe a little bit more than that. But anyway, it's just a really nice place to spend time if you're interested in bird life and particularly seabirds. So Mike gets you in position, and our group gets out there. And again, you can see it's just puffins, 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 and some fulmars and kittiwakes and so forth. And so if the wind direction is just right, you're getting these really spectacular looks and photos at these birds. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you on a little walk. We're all going to go, everyone up for a walk? Let's take a walk, shall we? So we're going to take a walk, and what we're going to do is we are going to make our way, try my pointer again, we're going to make our way out to the kind of the tip that you see here. And along the way, these are some of the views you're going to get, and you'll notice lots of puffins again. It is just stunning, spectacular, any way you want to describe it. It is just otherworldly to see this. The views are absolutely stunning and incredible. And again, lots of puffins. These are all, if you look, these are all puffins in here. All through here. Puffins, puffins, puffins. And we're going to continue to make our way all the way out to this point here and you'll just notice now, you can just kind of see it. There's a little dot right there in the center. And that's where we're going. We're going to just continue walking to the far side of the island. And that's where we're going. And you're thinking to yourself, why are we going there? Which is what I was saying when I was going there. Why are we going there? And that's why you're going there. And you're in part of the arch. And I would have loved to have been there when they put that thing there. Now, the thing about Grimsey is that there are tourists that come to the island, but typically it's for the tour ships that are going to Iceland. And so they'll put people on the Zodiacs and that sort of thing, and they'll bring them into to Grimsey, and they can spend a few hours there. And most of the tourists kind of march off to get their picture there. So that's what's going on for this. But kind of beyond that is as far as we went on that side of the island, because that's not where we were spending most of our time. And as you'll see in a minute, the photography closer to where we were going to spend time was really what we wanted to do. So we're back over to kind of the other side of the island, not too far from the guest house. We're on another beach. My buddy Eric here, and there are dovekies, a handful that show up. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see them, and I missed one, or two actually, that little shack that you see there is where I guess they will dry the fish. And so two dovekies got in that little building and were stuck. And one of the other people who were there found them there and rescued them. So we were told, hey, every day you go out, somebody go over and check to make sure they don't get stuck back in there. But we never saw them again. But we're going to go back, again, we're back over the other side of the island. We're closer to the guest house, and we're going to go over to the area near the lighthouse. And this is where a lot of the quote-unquote action is taking place. And you get a little bit of sense of scale here with my buddy Mike in the photo. And what you see on the cliff face there, for the most part, nesting, those are kittiwakes that are nesting there. But all along this area here is where you're going to start to encounter large numbers of the alcids. Again, that would be puffins, razorbills, and murres. But the interesting thing when you arrive here, depending on what the weather conditions are and were for us, is it tended to be overcast to a certain degree. And so this is typical of what the view was looking like until you have a day where it's not so cloudy, and then it looks like that. And again, so we arrive, it's like, I don't even know that exists, right? I'm just like, what? And then you wake up one morning, you look, it's like, whoa, did we just go someplace else? And that's what you're looking at. It is absolutely breathtaking. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go another little walk, and we're going to leave this area here around the lighthouse, and we're going to make our way up the other side of the island. And one of the other interesting things is, I'd like to know, and when I go back, who put the picnic bench there? I didn't see anybody picnicking while we were there. We tended to use it as a place to put our camera gear, but at some point someone thought it was a good idea to put a picnic bench there, so if you go there, you can picnic on Grimsey, I guess. So we're going to leave that area here. We're just going to walk up along this side of the island again, and you'll notice lots of puffins, more puffins. And we're going to leave this area, and we're going to walk all the way up. And the reason we're going to go in this direction, you're going to see in a minute, but I just want to get you a sense of what it looks like, what the terrain is like, and now these huge cliff faces here that go right down to the ocean. And we're going to make our way up over this rise here and on the other side. So that's the area we're going. Again, just over that rise. And looking back towards the lighthouse again. So again, you can see the distance that we're traveling, that we're walking. And again, there's a reason why we're going there. And I had seen for many years Mike's photos from this location, and Mike and I had talked about it, and I was really interested in seeing what we're about to look at. And it's this area here. And at first, it doesn't quite sink in terms of what's really going on there. And then as you get to a certain point, you realize the spectacle that's unfolding in front of you, which for the most part, these are common murres. You've got some kittiwakes that are down a little bit lower in this area down here. They're kittiwakes, but these are all murres up in here. And it goes on all the way around the backside there. I don't even know that you could count the number of birds that are here. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to get in a boat and get over there and see it from the ocean side, which was unfortunate, so I'm hoping when I go back next time that will happen. But the thing about seeing something like this, because you'll see these types of things if you're watching, whatever the documentary is on TV, and you see these types of, seabird colonies, and you think to yourself, does that really happen? Yeah, it does happen, but like, what's it like when you actually, you see it? And I would say, yes, you do see it, but it's more that you hear it. Because all the sounds that are going on is this whole other dimension that you just can't really fully appreciate until you're there. The other thing that you will notice sometimes is if the wind is in a certain direction, you might also smell it. So just keep that in mind. But keep in mind, so these are alcids. They're basically laying one egg. They've got one chance to really get it right. They do on the island some harvesting of eggs. If they harvest the eggs, apparently, and I'm not an expert on this, early enough in the nesting season, they will relay another egg. At a certain point, you don't want to be taking too many eggs, of course. And the other thing in Iceland is they do harvest and have, at some restaurants, you can have puffin. I've been to a couple restaurants in Iceland that have puffin. I would never eat a puffin. I can't imagine eating a puffin. But nonetheless, it does take place. There is apparently a little bit of harvesting occasionally that goes on in Grimsey, but Hutla at this point has tried to enlighten the locals that are still somewhat involved in it, that maybe let's not do this, because the idea of tourists coming here to see the puffins, this is where the real value is, and harvesting is really not a thing that we should be involved with. So hopefully she's getting more traction on that. So let's go back over a little bit closer to the harbor area and the hot dog stand. There is one small pond that is the only body of fresh water on the island itself. And this area here has its own set of birds that use this fresh water. And so it also offers the opportunity for some photography. And so, yes, there are all these seabirds that are nesting there, but also in the interior area of the island, there are thousands of Arctic terns that nest here. It is really kind of crazy how many Arctic terns you see, and that is the default tern when you're in Iceland is going to be an Arctic tern. And so, yes, Arctic terns, but there's other things, including lots of redneck phalaropes. That's the cool thing about Iceland, lots of redneck phalaropes. And here on Grimsey, there are lots of them, including, as you're going to see in a minute, if there's a puddle in the road that's large enough, you're going to have a phalarope. Just going to happen. But they like this little pond here as well, but it's the Arctic terns that are coming in. They're bathing, they're drinking the water, and so, again, it just offers you this opportunity to see and photograph Arctic terns. And for those that are interested in photographing specifically birds, this new technology of mirrorless cameras has, and it doesn't matter whether you're shooting Nikon, Canon or Sony or whatever, they all have this new feature with this mirrorless, which is this animal eye tracking, where you can point the camera at the subject, you can track with it, and the focus point will literally follow the eye of the bird. And so this is how you're able to execute flight photos that, when I first started shooting many years ago, some might say when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, because there was no autofocus. It was back in the film days. You had 36 shots and you had to reload. That was just the way it went. But now with this new mirrorless technology and this animal eye tracking, you're able to execute photos that, quite honestly, are really rather remarkable. There are other birds to see in Iceland. There are even a handful of songbirds, including snow buntings. We're starting to see snow buntings this time of year here in New England along the coast typically. But we see them in winter plumage. You go to Iceland, like this male is singing, you're going to get them in breeding plumage, which is very cool. Lots of snow buntings on Grimsey. And this time of the year, because we're there in late June, early July, it's 24-hour sunlight. So these singing birds, particularly these males, because they're all jacked up on testosterone and whatever else, they're just like, hey, it's daylight, I'm singing, right? That's just the way it is. Purple sandpipers do nest on the island as well. So any of the birds you're going to encounter here on the island this time of the year are almost certainly going to be breeding birds. And this is over near the lighthouse, and we probably had 20 or 30 purple sandpipers. I didn't spend a lot of time with them because that wasn't my main focus, but nonetheless, you will get purple sandpiper. Common snipe. In one of my YouTube videos, you can actually see a video and hear this bird calling, singing, if you're interested. And this particular bird was singing or calling for 4 hours straight. Did not stop. So again, once they, I guess, get locked on the fact that it's breeding season, they're just that, they are focused. You want to talk about laser focus? They're laser focused. European golden plover, what an absolutely gorgeous bird. Just stunning, absolutely stunning. You can see these birds throughout Iceland, but Grimsey offered some really nice opportunities to get some nice photos and observations of them. And one of the things I noticed from years ago from some of Mike's photos was something similar to this, where I had saw these photos from Mike where he had them, down in this grass with these nice yellow flowers. And I thought, oh, well, that'd be kind of cool. And so when we arrive, and the front lawn area of the guest house that Hotla had was this nice grass with all these nice yellow flowers. And I thought, we're in business. So I go off to do some photography of the puffins near the lighthouse the one morning, coming back for lunch, and I see this guy walking away with a lawnmower. And he had just mowed the lawn. There were no more yellow flowers. And I thought to myself, day late and $1 short. Well, luckily, I guess he didn't have the contract for the neighbor next door, so I was able to get it at the neighbor next door, thankfully. Common redshank, lots of redshanks. And the thing about redshanks, if you're familiar with them, in Iceland and probably anywhere that redshanks exist, is they will let you know anytime you're within 3 football fields of them. They are an absolutely noisy bird, beyond noisy, and you don't have to be anywhere near their nest, and they're still going to let you know that they don't appreciate you being anywhere near them. Eurasian oystercatcher, I wouldn't say there was a lot of them there, but more than a handful. They were nesting there. We saw at least 2 different breeding pair that had some young that were not quite fledged, but they were certainly a little bit further along. And again, they were all kind of typically on those beach areas. You weren't getting them on the interior at all. And then back to our redneck phalaropes. And I've already given away the secret on this photo. This is a puddle. This is not the pond. There's this nice big puddle in the road leading out to the lighthouse. And I kept seeing these 2 phalaropes there every time I walked by. And finally, the one time I was like, well, I got to get a photo of them and get this nice reflection. So you get the camera very low to the ground, and they're very cooperative. Most of the birds there, they don't necessarily view humans as a threat, so you're not going to spook them off. It's not like someone's pointing a gun at them and trying to shoot them, so they've got this disconnect in terms of you as a human and being a threat. So now we're going to go back over to the cliff face here near the lighthouse, and let's take a look at what you can see there, what photographic opportunities are available, and just the whole experience of sitting there and kind of enjoying what's going on. So a couple of things here. So I shoot Canon. That's the Canon 100 to 500 millimeter lens. I also have a 600 millimeter prime that I was shooting with as well. That's a microphone that you see on top of the camera. Has a windscreen. I shot a lot of video as well. And anything I'm shooting video, I'm shooting from a tripod. So you just kind of find your spot, set up, and you just kind of let the action just kind of come to you. I'm not one to run and chase. That's not the way I approach things. I find my spot, I sit very patiently and quietly, and just let whatever is going to take place, and those are the photos that I get. You're wearing waterproof pants because you're going to be sitting on this damp ground. And one of the interesting things about this island and about Iceland in general is a couple spots I've been to, there are ticks. You would not think Iceland and ticks, but several of us had ticks, and we all had them in the same place, which was in our belly button. Go figure. Go figure. I even have a video of a puffin with a tick crawling on it that I didn't notice it when I took the video. So, but anyway, it's not like a huge problem. I don't think there's a real issue with necessarily tick-borne diseases, but it's just kind of interesting that you get to a place and you wouldn't think about ticks, and yet they are there. In terms of the photography, and if you're interested in photographing birds in flight, which with this new autofocus technology that we have, this is a real opportunity to capture images that you otherwise really would not have an opportunity like you have here. Again, I had been to Iceland before. I'd been to a location called the Lachervar Cliffs, the Bird Cliffs, which is absolutely spectacular. I think it's one of the largest, if not the largest razorbill nesting colony in the world. Lots of puffins there as well. Grimsey is so much better, particularly with the flight photography, and this kind of illustrates it here. If the winds are in the right direction, as it were, and the birds are moving, and this is on a good day with the winds in the right direction, this is not out of the question to just have this go on with birds flowing through for hours. Just this cacophony of seabirds just flying by, coming back to roost, to rest, to feed their young in case of the puffins and so forth. And so you find your spot, and you just kind of, again, wait for this action to take place in front of you. It's a little deceiving here. Yes, they're close to the cliff, and that's 100 feet down, but it's not quite as close as it looks. But yeah, you definitely have to be careful, for sure. So one of the other things as a photographer that I'm quite often looking for is there's this thing now where a lot of bird photographers want the bird to fill the frame. We're to the point where the photo almost feels claustrophobic, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. And I actually did a YouTube video on this, Mike Militia and I did. But quite often I like a photo that shows something that's a little more context of the bird and its environment, and this kind of illustrates it here with this kittiwake, the young one in the nest itself, the whitewash, the dark rocks, the cracks in the rocks. The whole thing kind of invites you in and tells a little bit more of a story. As does even a shot like this, which is a little more close up, but not filling the frame. And now you add some vegetation to it, and it has a whole different feel to it for the viewer. And again, it tells a little bit more of a story. And one of the things as a wildlife photographer, and particularly as a bird photographer, is you're always trying to focus on the eye of the bird. That's the thing that's crucial to making the photo kind of speak to you. And then if you take it to the next level in terms of zooming in, as it were, you have this. And while I don't dislike this photo, it doesn't have the same feel as the other two. And so one of the things, again, you see with a lot of photographers now, and I see this all the time on social media, it drives me crazy. And when I am judging photo competitions for camera clubs, is I will see photos like this, pick whatever the bird is, and the crop will be even tighter. And again, it feels claustrophobic, and it's not something that I want to do, although certainly I was guilty of it much younger in my career. And again, lots of flight photography opportunities again with these kittiwakes as well. And we did have an opportunity twice with this skua. This is a really large bird. And while it's not a bird of prey, it is a predator. And what this bird was doing is it was coming in trying to steal the kittiwake chicks out of the nest. We didn't witness it, but this is what the bird would do. And the first time we witnessed it, all of these kittiwakes, a lot of them up in the air, screaming, yelling, just whatever, this whole thing that just sort of erupted. And at first I was like, what's going on here? And if you're familiar with, locally, if you had a red-tailed hawk and you had crows or blue jays or that sort of thing bobbing, this is kind of the similar thing that's taking place. And so the first time it happens, it kind of catches me off guard. The conditions weren't real good, and the bird flies by and like, oh, that's a skua, that's what's going on. 2 days later, this happens. As the whole thing starts to unfold, within seconds, my radar just clicks in, and I go, there's a skua. And sure enough, it's coming from right to left. It flies right in front, and this is one of the photos I was able to capture. You also get fulmars, northern fulmars nesting. There's not a lot of them, but they're certainly there on the island. They're nesting on these cliffs that are kind of more, not on the cliff face, but a little inland. And this is one of the tube nose. And again, because I don't do well on boats, I don't do pelagic trips, this is how I see my seabirds. And we were able to find a couple of nests. And again, these are birds that don't have really any fear of humans. And I got a really large telephoto lens, a 600 millimeter with a 1.4. I've got 840 millimeters, so I'm not very close to the bird. And if you look closely on this photo here, you'll see that's the tube nose. So that's where they excrete the salt out of that little tube right there. So, and it's nice to get, again, this context here with the vegetation, the green, the flowers. It's just a little bit more inviting of a photo. So, the alcids, so the murres, Again, that area that I showed you earlier with all those birds, that's where the area where they're nesting. But some of them will come in closer to the lighthouse. They'll land on the cliff face there rather close to you, and they afford you these opportunities. If you notice the way the legs of the bird are, they sit way back on the body. These birds are not at all equipped to walk on land. And so what they're doing almost every time you see them is they are right up on the cliff face. So what they do is when it's time to fly, it's almost like they just fall off the cliff, open their wings, and off they go. They're not running. That's not going to happen. They're just like right on the edge of the cliff, fall off and fly. This is also common murre. This is bridled, which is the little spectacles that you see. It's still the same species. I don't know what the percentage is, but you would see a handful of these with the little spectacles, and that gives you a better look at the feet and how they sit, and again, right up on the cliff face, so they can just fall off and fly away. And sometimes you're lucky and you get two. And then in flight. And so for the flight photography, again, you're kind of picking your spot, you're sitting, you're waiting, and you'll pick the bird up a little bit further out. They're almost always kind of coming in the same direction. Hopefully the wind's at your back, they're facing into the wind, and it kind of holds them up a little bit. And if you, in many cases, again, as a wildlife photographer, and I specialize in birds, you're quite often looking to try to get eye contact with the subject. So if you can get the bird either looking slightly back towards the camera or right down the barrel of the lens, or in this case, kind of looking towards you, it makes the connection with the viewer. And one of the things I noticed with photographing these owls is, and it's the case for not every bird that I photograph in flight, because it varies, but if you can also show the feet, it adds another element to the actual photo, and again, for the viewer to get more context of the bird itself. And in this case, looking down, so that's the water you see down there, not the sky. So you're actually looking down on the bird. And lots of alcids out in the water, so there's one spot where you could just kind of look over the edge and just look down the water, and you've got a couple razorbills there and murres, and again, just lots of activity that's going on. And that brings us to the next of the alcids we're going to take a look at, which is razorbills. And again, kind of similar in terms of just the overall physiology of the bird and the way the legs sit on the bird itself. And again, they tend to be a little bit further towards the cliff face, not as much as the murres. And difficult because you've got a black and white bird, so you're sometimes struggling with what that exposure should be. And just a couple of examples, and I like the out of focus with the puffin in the back. And looking down the barrel of the lens, and again, trying to add some of the vegetation in here. And portrait shots. Again, these birds are fairly close. You've got a big telephoto lens. They're very cooperative. And the thing with these razorbills is they have this really deep yellow mouth. In this case, getting the back side of the bird, and again, looking slightly back towards the camera. You're trying to get a little bit of the catch light in the eye. So you've got one bird. Maybe sometimes you get lucky and you get two. And you've got to hopefully get them on the same plane so they're both in focus. And then even more difficult is to get three birds. Beyond three is very difficult. But what you're doing here is, and if for those that have been to any location where you have seabirds like these, any of these alcids, is when they're sitting wherever they're sitting, their heads are just doing this. They're constantly doing this. They don't do this. That doesn't happen. It's this. I mean, they might do this for a little bit. So now that you've got to get three of them, so I'm sitting and waiting and waiting and sitting and sitting and waiting and waiting and sitting. And I'm just waiting for hopefully a moment where I've got them all hopefully lined up and looking in the same direction. So to get that one shot, I probably took 300 photos to get the one shot. And again, to see the inside the mouth there, that bright, deep yellow. And again, other elements that I like to try to incorporate, and in this case, the lichens that are on the rock, again, these all just kind of add to the overall look and feel of the photo. And if you can get even more things kind of happening, in this case, the bird vocalizing, stretching its wings, you add the water in the background, the vegetation, it's just the whole thing just hopefully tells a little bit more of an interesting story. And then in flight, and so what's happening here is, again, that wind, they're landing into the wind. And so as you start to see what's happening with a group of birds in a particular area as they keep coming in, and that wind holds them up just before they land, you put yourself in the right position, and these are the type of shots that you get, because that wind just holds them up just for a split second. And then just a couple of photos of the razorbills in flight. Okay, so we've looked at the common murres, we've looked at the razorbills. What's the bird that everybody wants to see? The puffins. I dare say if you found somebody who knew nothing about birds at all and you just showed them a photo of a puffin, they would just go, oh, look at that. So anyway, so this is my buddy Sam from Erie, from my hometown, and this is pretty typical. You just find your spot, you see those two puffins over in the corner, and you're just waiting for whatever is going to take place in front of you. The activity just starts. Maybe you luck out and you get one that's up in the grass. You get a pair. And this is an interesting, I wish the bird was facing the other way, right? But it looks like he's like conducting an orchestra or something. I'm not really sure what's going on here. Okay, so we're going to go to story time. All right, so I'm going to relay a story, and I'm going to not only relay a story, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about how my approach to photographing birds is sometimes. And by the way, what I'm about to tell you, I did as a YouTube video very recently. So go on my YouTube channel and you'll hear a version of what you're about to hear. So I decide after dinner one night that I'm going to go back down to the lighthouse, and I want to find a puffin. But it's not so much just the puffin. The puffin has to be on the right rock. So I'm almost more looking for the rock and then the puffin. And in this case, almost immediately I find the puffin on the rock that I want, because I'm looking for a rock that has some character to it, and then again adds this whole other element to the overall composition of the image. And so what you're seeing here is the back of my camera and what I'm looking at. That's exactly what I'm looking at. And with mirrorless technology, I do not have to look through the viewfinder. I can just look at the back of the screen. And the other thing I can do, if you look off to the left-hand side of the camera, that cable is a cable release, a remote. And so I've got that cable release and that remote, and all I have to do is look at the back of that camera, line up the subject and frame it the way I want, and anytime the bird moves its head, that focus point follows the eye of the bird. So I've just got to pay attention to that. I've also got my microphone set up so I can record some video, and that's my 600mm lens. But I also have a second camera body with a 100 to 500mm lens so I can take shots that are a little bit wider. Okay, so I'm just setting it all up. I sat with this bird for over an hour and a half, waiting for something. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm waiting for something. And inevitably, when you sit and you wait and you have a cooperative bird, good things happen. The only question is, are you patient enough to wait for it to happen? And that's what my YouTube video is about, is being patient. And so I take a series of shots, and these are with the 600 and the teleconverter. These are tight shots, right? Kind of frame filling in a way. It's okay, and I like it look kind of teetering on the rock. But that's more what I was waiting for, something like that. And so this is one thing as a bird photographer, wildlife photographer. If you have the subject looking right down the barrel of the lens, it makes for a really interesting photo. The thing that takes it to a whole nother level is this, and this being the bird opened up its mouth, right? I don't know if it was yawning, vocalizing, I don't know what it was doing. I can't remember that far back at this point. But it happens for a split second. So while I'm looking at the back of the screen, I've got the remote. When it turns and does that, I just hit the shutter, the focus point is already locked in, you get the image. That's how you pull it off. But you have to pay attention. And you would think, oh, that's easy to do, just sit. Sean just told me, just sit, wait, point up, hold the remote. It's going to happen. Try it. I dare you. I double dare you. You know why? Because your mind wanders. You think it's easy, and I guess to a certain degree it is. And even someone like myself, and I've been doing this a long time, I will sit, I will wait, I will concentrate, I'll focus, and I cannot explain it to you to this day. Something happens, and it's like your brain just disconnects, and you find yourself just, whatever. I can't explain it. But here's what I can tell you. When that happens, what you've been waiting for also happens, and you miss it. Now, luckily for me, I was as focused as I could be, and I did get that shot. But it wasn't ultimately the shot that I really wanted. That was the shot I wanted. And it's no disrespect to that or that. I like it. It's great. It's puffin. Like, who doesn't like puffins? I mean, come on. Like, show of hands. Who would want that on their wall? Okay, right? That's what I wanted. And so, while I've got this whole thing going on with those shots that I showed you, and I took a lot of photos, my camera shoots 30 frames a second. This starts to happen, and it was a moment where I had just wandered slightly, just slightly. And so I didn't have my remote in my hand. But what I did have is the second camera body with the 100 to 500, and I pulled it up, and this happens within 2 seconds at most. And I lock on, and I take a series of shots, and I get that. And as soon as I took it, I knew that was the shot I was waiting for. Because this photo tells more of a story. Now you've got not only the bird, and you've got the bird, again, I'll say vocalizing or yawning. It's hard to say what it was doing. But you add all of this, right? The rock, the lichens, the vegetation, it tells more of an interesting story. And as a photographer, as a wildlife photographer, and specifically for photographing birds, this is more interesting to me. Much more interesting, much more compelling, much more engaging to the viewer. And that's what I'm quite often looking for. And as a photographer, when I go in the field, if I could take one great photo in a day, as opposed to 20 okay photos, give me the one great photo every day. Hands down, every time. Okay, that was my story. Lots of nice portraits you can shoot as well. Again, these birds, some of them are very close. I dare say you could go there with, if you had like this, whatever the latest, greatest Apple smartphone or Android smartphone is, like you could go there and like take really great photos and videos and just kind of blow your mind. But again, so just doing these, now I'm purposely doing these tight shots. I'm doing portraits now, right? And then, but wait, there's more. So I finish taking the series of photos that I said I was sitting with that bird for just over an hour and a half. And on the way back, kind of on the other side of the lighthouse was an area where those purple sandpipers were, and it kind of had this kind of area that kind of went down to the water. It was almost like natural stairs that went down. And the tide was out a little bit. And as I looked at it, I went, I wonder if I can get down there. And so sure enough, I keep walking over, investigating and whatever, and it was like this nice area you could walk down, and I got almost right to the edge of the water. And there was a group of about, I don't know, 40 or 50 puffins. There were a few razorbills in there. And I knew once I got down close to the water, because I want to be at eye level with the birds. I don't want to be up here, I want to be down with the birds. I knew when I got down there they were all going to swim away. I knew that was going to happen. But I also have enough experience to know that if you are just very deliberate about what you're doing, and you're quiet and you're patient and you're not moving real fast, that once you get down to the water and sit down, and that's the important part, you have to sit down on the ground, the birds will come back. And I sat down, and sure enough, in less than 10 minutes, they all swam back towards me. But now it gets even more interesting, because not only are they swimming towards me, but now they're curious. And they want to know, who are you? Why are you here? And so now they're swimming up to me. And so now I'm getting a series of photos, again, right down the barrel of the lens, with the birds on the water. And I get back to the guest house, and I show Mike a couple photos down the water. And again, Dave knows Mike. Dave was there. I show the photos to Mike, and Mike goes, "Where the hell did you get these photos?" I go, "Oh, it's over by the lighthouse," and blah, blah, blah. And I walk down, and then I got along the shore. And Mike's like, "Man, I've been coming here for 10 years. I never knew that." I said, "Well, there it is." So when I go back, and I am going to go back, that's the spot I want to get to. I want to get down on the water. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to repeat that while I was there for various reasons. But anyway, right down on the water. Very cool. The flight photos with puffins. And again, the flight photography here is just unbelievable. And as the birds are flying by, at a certain point, you're overwhelmed because there's so many birds that you have to kind of like adjust your brain again. Like, what am I doing? How am I doing this? Because you've never experienced something like this as a photographer, almost certainly. And so now it's just all happening. And these are the types of shots that are certainly possible. And this is all with that 100 to 500. And again, that animal eye tracking, right, that focus point, well, it's not foolproof, right, but it's pretty damn good, right? And it will track the eye of the subject. And that wind just holding the bird up just a little bit, and you get the sense of it here, right? That wind just hits it and just holds it up just for a little bit. Different day, had some nice light, again, flying right towards me. And then, I think the next photo, let's see. Yeah, this is exactly how I took this photo. It's not cropped. It's 100, 500. The bird was so close that, I mean, you look right into the eye of the bird, and you got this nice light on the bird, and it's just, and by the way, if you haven't seen puffins flying with a tailwind, it's pretty incredible how fast they are. This is not a slow-moving bird. These things are ripping along. And again, if you didn't have that autofocus, you'd never have that opportunity. And so just a couple more examples of these puffins in flight. And again, on the backside, that's looking down on the water. And they do have young, so they have, and keep in mind, again, these puffins, they have one chick. It's not like a robin, they only got 5 babies in a nest. There's one, they're burrow nesters, they're underground, they're nesting in burrows. They've got one chick. And so they've got that one opportunity to get it right. And the other thing I would just, and not to get too doom and gloom here, a lot of bird species, and including puffins in certain areas and some of the other seabirds, numbers are in decline in some areas because there's issues with getting the proper food to the chicks. And by the proper food, in some cases, it's the size of the fish. And just as an example, at Eastern Egg Rock, off the coast of Maine, I forget what year it was now, I don't exactly quote me on this, but I think almost all the chicks that year didn't make it, or the majority of them did it, but yet the burrows were littered with fish. But it was the wrong size fish, and the chicks starved to death. So it's a real concern. And then the other thing that's a concern now is avian flu. I'm not sure that it's an issue at the moment in Iceland with the seabirds, although it's a problem because they're colonial nesters. But I just read an article where gerfalcons in Iceland are getting hammered. Large numbers of gerfalcons dying because the gerfalcons are feeding on birds that do have avian flu. So sorry to be doom and gloom, but all right. So that is our trip and our adventure to Grimsey Island. And I would just say to you that if you are thinking about or interested in visiting Grimsey Island and going, and you're going to plan a trip to Iceland, definitely do it well in advance. This is, it's not like there's a Hilton and a Marriott and a Motel 6 on Grimsey Island. It's very limited in terms of the accommodations. Okay, so now we're going to go to Flatey Island. Very different experience on Flatey as you're about to see. And for Flatey Island, to get there, we have to do what I've already said I don't like to do, which is I got to get on another ferry. Thankfully, this ferry is only an hour and a half, and the water conditions are not like they were going to Grimsey. So for that, I'm okay. But you're going to leave from this town here, and now you're going to hear me butcher an Icelandic name of a town. but I'm going to do my best. Stickesholmer. I think I got it. Stickesholmer. I like the way it kind of flows off the tongue. Stickesholmer. So you leave Stickesholmer, and you're going to take a ferry over to Flatey. And the gentleman in the back that raised his hand that said he went to Flatey is a lot of people that go to Iceland that know of Flatey. The only reason they know it is because when they take the ferry from Stickesholmer and they're going across to the other side, they're getting let off here because they're going to the Lochavar bird cliffs that I mentioned earlier. That's why people know of Flatey. On my first trip to Iceland, we spent the entire day in Flatey, and I wanted to go back, and so myself and 2 of my friends on this trip, 3 of us went and spent 3 days on Flatey. So it's a tiny island, as you're about to see, but that's basically what's going on here. And if you were going to the Lochavar cliffs and you were taking the ferry, that's the quickest and easiest way. The other way is to drive all the way around, which we did on the way back on the time I went there. If you did that, it is literally an entire day drive, and you could go 3 hours and never see another human. It is a really remote part of Iceland. That's a Google view of Flatey. Again, you jump on the ferry, a newer, nicer ferry, thankfully. And lots of birds to see even on your ferry ride. Lots of fulmars off the bow of the boat. And every once in a while, you'll see large groups of puffins. I mean, puffins, they're all over Iceland, right? And so someone might just yell out, puffins, and you look off and there's just like, there's 400 puffins flying by. Clearly there's some island somewhere near there where they're nesting, but lots of puffins. And those are all puffins that you see there. But as you approach Flatey, this is the island, it has a certain charm to it, although you wouldn't know it from the looks on these 2 people's face. I don't think they're real thrilled about being there, but we were thrilled about going there. It has this, again, this interesting feel to it, the architecture. It's just a really charming place to spend time. Almost everybody that goes to this island and people that own any of the houses or cottages, it's just a place to go in the summer. I don't think very many people live here year-round. You come into the harbor area here where they let you off, and there's some things to see here, which we're going to look at in a second. So lots of fulmars, but this is the one thing you realize about Flatey, and we realized from my 2014 trip and again in 2022, is what you see in this photo here is something you haven't seen yet. There's one thing in this photo you have not seen on any other bird photo. It's banded. They do a lot of bird banding on Flatey, a lot, to the point where now you're going to see how many birds are banded on Flatey. And so the fishermen, when they come in, they're cutting up the fish and throwing the scraps out, and so you get all these fulmars in there tussling to get some of the scraps, so that's what's going on here. And just to give you a little more, again, a little more sense of the feel of the island and the charm of the island, as it were. There's a couple of these coves, these nice coves, which depending on the tide will determine what birds are there in terms of the feeding cycle and so forth. So this is one of the larger coves, lots of fowl ropes in here, as we'll see in a minute. Then the smaller cove, which is basically in the area of the hotel. So this is the Hotel Flatey here. This is also part of the Hotel Flatey here, this green building, which is where we stayed at. And then the restaurant and the bar is the yellow building that you see here. And a very charming place, as you'll see in a second. Excellent dining facility. The food is spectacular. I really cannot say enough good things about the food here. It's absolutely great. And if you're into the desserts, which I am definitely into, very good desserts to be had here as well. So again, just a really nice place to spend a few days or more. And so if you are planning a trip to Iceland, I would absolutely encourage you to look at the island of Flatey and Hotel Flatey. And again, I have a YouTube video that you can check out for more information if you're interested. And again, this is the other part of the hotel, the guest house area. So we stayed here. The 3 of us, they had a nice large room that had 3 beds, so the 3 of us could stay. Behind the building, behind the Hotel Flatey, there's new owners, relatively new owners. So when I was there in 2014, none of this was here. So they've got it all set up so that you can go out back and have, a glass of wine and hors d'oeuvres and whatever. And, we you get to meet people from all over the world, which we did. We were visiting with lots of folks and, sharing stories and so forth. But there's also things to photograph. There's a snow bunting nest that's off to the left there. It was kind of this little crevice. You couldn't really see the nest, but the male and the female kept going in with food. And then off to the right, kind of going up in this direction here, is a, I don't want to call it a road, we'll call it a path. There's a bunch of houses here, but this leads up to an area. There's actually a bird sanctuary on the island. So part of the interior is off limits, and you've got a huge concentration of Arctic terns that are nesting here. And unfortunately, in 2014 when we were there, my understanding is that Arctic tern colony almost completely failed. Again, this has to do with the availability of whatever is the food source they need for their chicks. So again, this is a real concern almost anywhere you go these days. I don't think it was like every year after that, but it's definitely a concern. But anyway, you can walk up this path here, lots of good things to see and photograph here, as we're going to see in a minute, and then you make your way up to the very end of the hill here. This is the sign for the bird sanctuary, and you can't go any further. But again, this is just lots of opportunities here, and this is typical of my setup for my photography and videography when I was there. Again, that windscreen on the microphone is how I'm recording, because the wind would distort the sound on the microphone. And then back to our peanut butter. Like, I got a new location. I got new birds. I got to add them to the list, right? So here's the thing. I am, if nothing else, I am a experimental type person. And so, you sometimes just, hey, I'm just saying, sometimes you got to go out and you got to be a little crazy. So, do two different types of jam. I'm just, so you do whatever you want. That's your business. So, got to add more birds to the list, and I added more than a handful on the peanut butter and jelly list. So, when I go to Florida in a couple weeks, I plan on getting up to a couple of spots, including Myakka River State Park. I'm going to add spoonbill to my peanut butter and jelly list. So one of the things you hear about Iceland is it's often referred to as the land of the midnight sun. And the question is, will you ever see the midnight sun? And when we were on Grimsey, we never saw the midnight sun, because it was just, every time it was midnight, there was too many clouds. You couldn't see the sun. So the first night on Flatey, that's about as good as I had for the midnight sun. And that photo is taken exactly at midnight. And that is what the midnight sun looks like. And so I can say I've witnessed it and photographed it, and it was literally out the back door of where we were staying. But again, so the island itself, just to give you a little more feel, lots of sheep on the island. There are no Icelandic horses on the island, but lots of sheep still on the island. Don't get too attached. They might be on the menu. So there are eiders that are nesting here on Flatey. The males at this time of the year, they've all bailed out. So they've left the females in charge. So it's the females and the young eiders that you're going to see, and pretty decent numbers of them. Wagtails. I got to put on my. I wouldn't say it was like an overly abundant bird, but you certainly saw them. And then, bingo, banded. And so this bird is, recently fledged. So this bird had been recently banded, clearly. So there's a fair amount of bird banding that's going on here. And then this bird here, which, again, we're going to go back to audience participation. Anybody want to guess what that is? You've all seen this bird. What? Snow bunting. That is what a snow bunting looks like. That's, probably what? 2 weeks of fledging, after fledging? When we get them here in the winter, they don't look like that, so their plumage is a little bit further along, I guess. But that's what an adult looks like. So that's the same species. That and that is the same species. And then back to the phalaropes. So lots of redneck phalaropes on Grimsey. Way more redneck phalaropes on Flatey. It is bananas how many redneck phalaropes are on this tiny island. They are freaking everywhere. Lots of them. And so in those coves that I showed you, quite often you'll get them in these coves. And so again, you get down low to the ground, sit on the ground, and it's all the activities just happening in front of you. And again, kind of coming right down the barrel of the lens. But the other thing about Flatey and why it is known and well known for people that are hardcore birders is for that bird. So we were looking at redneck foul ropes. Flatey occasionally, apparently, has maybe one, maybe two pair of red foul ropes. And so this was actually from my 2014 trip. We lucked out, there was one there. I got down along the edge of the water and got some nice photos of it. When we were there in 2022, there was a group of, I think they were from Germany. There were 4 young birders from Germany, and they specifically came to Flatey looking for red foul rope. And so, again, you know, bird watchers know bird watchers. So I didn't have my camera with me, I had my binoculars. As soon as you see a bird watcher, hey, you know you're a bird watcher. We're all in the same club together, right? And so they approached me immediately, and like they were looking for red foul rope, and I had to break the bad news to them. But we did luck out and see him at least in 2014. The other thing that people quite often go to Flatey for is the opportunity to photograph black guillemot, to see and photograph black guillemot. They're fairly abundant. They're really close. They're all along these the cliff areas that are there, and these rocks and these crevices where they're nesting. And again, the opportunities to see them and photograph them is really quite spectacular. And one of the more interesting observations is to sit there and watch a black guillemot in the water. They come up, it's a fish, it's not an eel, it's actually a fish. I keep forgetting the name of this. What is it? I'm not sure if that's it or not. It might be. Regardless, how quickly they can find them and come back up each time is really rather remarkable. So the bird will hit the water, they swim around, they dive. It's like almost seems like they come up back to the edge, jump up on the rock, fly up on the rock, go into their nesting burrow, feed it to the young, back out, and they just keep repeating this. It's rather remarkable, actually. Again, because it's an alicid, they're really kind of clumsy on land. In this case, this bird is reacting to another guillemot that's a little too close to it. So trying to get these action photos. And then in 2022, I didn't see him so much with that red fish. I had a whole series of them coming in with these shrimp. And so clearly they're opportunistic in terms of whatever food source is available. And you can see it here in its beak. And it's, again, same thing. They would just go out, they would catch one, bring it up, and it's just kind of just repeating it over and over. But in terms of the photography, again, these really nice opportunities to sit and to observe and to capture these photos. And again, here, adding this element of the rock with the lichens, with the bird, the whole thing, again, hopefully trying to tell a little bit more of a story. And then interestingly, and for those that are birders, this is not, I'm not about to break groundbreaking news to you, but in certain light, black birds have different sheen to what you think is black, right? You see this on a lot of ducks. And the same thing here, this guillemot in the right light, there was like this, almost this green sheen that was on part of the head of the bird. It's not this deep black that you think it is. So just a couple of those shots. And then, again, other birds that I wasn't even expecting. In this case, we had a group of ruddy turnstones. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So, you know, it's just things are going to show up that you didn't even think of, and yet they're there. And again, Eurasian oyster catcher, just a handful on the island, not many, just a few. And ring plover looks a lot like our semi-palmated plover. And again, I wouldn't say there's a lot of them, but, you know, more than a handful. And again, on this rock with the nice lichens. And back to our red shanks. And one of the things with certain types of bird photography, particularly if you've got a bird on the ground and you can get that sense of movement, one of the things I really like to do, and this is definitely something with larger wading birds, is when they're walking, and is to get that foot off the ground, to give that sense of movement, and it's just a little bit more interesting for the viewer. In this case, the mouth is open just slightly. Again, getting that catch light in the eye. In flight, and another banded bird, right? So a lot of banding going on here. And then at low tide, right in front of the the Hotel Flatey was this area, these rocks that had all this vegetation, the seaweed vegetation on the rocks. I like the texture of it. And again, these redshanks are constantly vocalizing. It doesn't matter whether you're there or not. You could be in the hotel and you hear them constantly. This time, they're constantly calling. And then black-tailed godwit. What a cool bird. And in 2014, we did not see them on the island at all. But in 2022, there were 2 pair nesting on either side of the island, including 1 pair that was in the bird sanctuary area. And so we had some nice opportunities with this black-tailed godwit. And then down again on this cove, there's my buddy Dr. Carl making an appearance again. Birds are interesting because even with very small areas that have the right environment for nesting, they will take advantage of it. And in this case, on this cliff face here, which is not very big, I mean, you can see how small it really is, yet there's fulmars nesting there. Not many, just a few. And standing on the top of that cliff, you get this nice angle with them flying by, and you get the mountains in the background. And again, flying right by you. Or in this case, the wind holding it up as it's trying to get back down into the nest area. And then one of the other nesting birds reacting to one of the birds flying in. Hey, get away from me. And this is all happening, again, not many of them, just a handful, right there in front of you. And a nice look here, you can see why they're called tube nose, right? In this case, this northern fulmar. It's not on a nest, it's just sitting on top of the ledge, or the little ledge area there. And I like it with the little pink flowers, the grass. And again, you can really see that tube nose on the bird. And then finally, we're almost going home, folks. I've mentioned before, lots of Arctic terns, and on Flatey, it is crazy how many Arctic terns are here. Again, that bird sanctuary, lots of Arctic terns. And so these really nice opportunities to see and photograph them. And then this photo here, we're almost going to end. I'm going to show you or demonstrate or try to articulate as best I can as to how much I scrutinize specific photos as to what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to throw away. And I'm very ruthless about the culling process, deleting of photos. And so I can look at a photo and I can know within really almost a split second whether I'm going to keep it or not. And yet when you get to certain photos like this, I have to concentrate a little bit more. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm curious the reaction. One of the reasons I kept this photo, and I liked it when I saw it, but one of the reasons I kept this photo is this spot right here. And again, this is how much I scrutinize a photo. That tail feather right there, had that tail feather been behind the wing, I would have thrown it away. Because there's separation there, that little element, and this is again how much I scrutinize photos, is to how much I think the photo really grabs the attention of the viewer. And while you might think it's a really subtle thing, it makes a big difference in your photography when you find these very little things that make the photo go from wherever it's at to this next level. And that one little thing took it to this whole nother level in terms of how I was viewing the image. And with that, you have now visited the islands of Grimsey and Flatey. If you're thinking about traveling to Iceland, I would absolutely encourage you to go to either. You will not be disappointed. The great thing about traveling to Iceland, if you haven't been there, anybody under the age of 50 speaks fluent English, so there's no language barrier for the most part. The food is very good at every place I've stayed at in Iceland. The people are fantastic. They absolutely roll out the red carpet. The scenery is absolutely to die for. I dare say you could put up a map of Iceland, you could take a dart, you could throw it, it would hit, and you go, that's where we're going to go. And you would absolutely be a winner, whatever area you picked. So I would encourage you to go to Iceland. You will not be disappointed. And the great thing about being here in Boston, again, you can be there relatively quickly, 4.5 to 5 hours. So with that, I'll take any questions if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, and we'll
Yes.
just ask you to
Oh,
use the
yep.
mic. So there's a question up here, so we'll
No,
take,
I'm not going to bring the mics around, sorry. Yep,
Yeah,
go ahead, Jane. Yep.
we'll just take a couple, given the time, and
Yep.
then.
By the way,
Sean
my
will be here.
business card is sitting out in the front area there. It has my email address, so you can take it if you want. If you've got any questions, you can email me later as well. I'm pretty good about answering. Yes, go ahead.
This is less of a question, but more of a tip to prevent seasickness on a ferry boat. This works for pregnant people and cancer patients as well. Take your thumb and index, the web of your finger, right? Hold it down. Don't look at the horizon if it's choppy water. Look directly at the rail.
So I will tell you, it works for some people. It doesn't work for me.
Bring some Pepto-Bismol as well. You'll be fine.
Oh, I've tried everything. I've had every remedy you can think of. Not me. Nope. Yeah, you know where I'm at on the boat. Sorry. Anyway, there was another question over here, I think.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Oh.
What months were you there? And what
End of June, early July. I was there both times. We were over July 4th, in fact. Yep. And by the way, the weather conditions it changed, but Grimsey much cooler. Mid 40s to into the 50s. Flatey, there was a couple days we were in t-shirts. Big difference. Yeah.
One more?
One
Is
more.
there another question?
The word. Why peanut butter jelly? It's muffin nutter.
Hey! You could start. Well, we could start another list. Whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna be curious if anybody takes me up on the peanut butter and jelly list. Come on, people. Come on, get with it. Get with it. Hey, thanks for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again, Jim, Janie, ECOC, Peabody Essex. I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to be here. Look forward to it again. Maybe you'll have me come back and I can tell you about penguins in the Falkland Islands next time. How's that sound? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks so much.